Here we go. Relaxation. Well, I apparently was too relaxed this morning. And part of that too relaxed resulted in me sending you an email that was incorrect and doubly confused everything. So let me make a clarification right this second. And what I'm about to tell you is accurate for relaxation. I sent you an email this morning in a panic because I was looking at another tea from the Ilau Mountains, and I was looking at the timings, and I thought, oh my God, I sent out the wrong timings. So turns out I sent out the correct timings. So pretend you didn't get that email. That's the first part of that. Second part of that is in the original email I sent out, it talked about there being 5 grams. We put 6 grams, which is the correct amount for relaxation. So, it's really hard when you have an understudy handling things because they got stuff open on their desk and on their desktop and so forth, and they just pick things randomly. And that's what apparently happened this morning. So good to go. Good to go here. Everything is in good shape. So let's talk about the Ilau Mountains. Let's talk about relaxation. These 3 weeks, we have looked at the tea from Feng Cheng. That was last week, Autumn Colors. And the first week, Herald, was from Fujian Province. We're still in Yunnan, but this is a different part of Yunnan, and the flavor profile is different. So that's the first thing we want to understand about what we're going to do today. Before we get deeper into the two today, there's 2 events in the shop within the last week I want to talk about because both of them touch upon what we're going to talk about today. And both of them have a relationship to how important it is to understand what you're doing with tea and make conscious decisions. So we have a fireman who's been coming in for the last month or so, maybe 6 weeks, and he's really settled into the cliff tea, and he's talked about what his philosophy is. And his philosophy is if you're going to do anything, you do it at the highest levels. You do it where you get the most value. And Biju and I were thinking about this. This is a wonderful principle that we also follow. When it comes to tea, it doesn't matter where we are. In other words, if a person comes to us and says, I have the highest quality Darjeeling tea available, you know what? We sit and drink that because we want to know. We want to get it at that level. And that's part of what the underlying foundation of this shop has been since the beginning. And so us going to the Ilau Mountains, even as troublesome as it was, and by the way, there was a video I wanted to send you, but it was so large, I couldn't actually get that to you. Eventually, we'll get that somewhere where you can see it, where we're going and discussing with farmers, again, this question of high quality. Don't give me anything that you estimate isn't your highest quality. That's not what we do here. So that's the first thing. This also touches on the second item that happened within this last week or so. We had a customer come in and insist that they had to have a black tea. It's like, okay, that's fine. Flavor profile. I just need it black. And by black, they meant red, a red tea. I just need it red. I need it stronger. Stronger isn't a very useful or good description. Shame on me for not really bearing down on that description when it was given to me, because you have to ask more questions and you have to not be misled by labels. Remember, all of you during this last 3 weeks tasted Harold. Not one of you said, oh, this is very light. Wow, I can barely taste this. It is, by definition, a strong red tea. Very distinct. What this customer, and if I had really borne down, if I had really gotten deep into what they wanted, I wouldn't have listened to the description, black/red tea. I would have said, you want a heavier tasting tea, regardless of what the title is. I didn't do that. And so the result is the customer didn't think they got what they wanted, although they did get a strong red tea. But that's not what they were really looking for. Language matters. And as it turns out, more importantly, I better be able to be a good translator. Most of the time, I translate just fine. Occasionally, I fall off base because customers come in, they tell me they understand what they're saying to me, and they make it clear that they want this thing or that thing, and then I don't delve a little deeper. It's always that one more step. And so when you're serving guests and they say, well, I don't want anything bitter, that's not enough. Oh, I don't want anything that's too light. That's not enough. You've got to get down really into what flavor profile that they truly want. Now, if they don't know what flavor profile and they say anything is good, and you really determine, yeah, anything is good, all right, then, nobody has any reason to be unhappy after they get anything, right? That's the first thing. So those are the two main things that happened within the last couple of weeks within the shop, and I thought were worth sharing because, again, this is an underpinning of why do we go to Isle Mountain. This place is hugely inconvenient to get to, but we had heard, we had tasted, and hence made the decision, the good decision, to go to Isle Mountain and really experience the environment and experience the tea. Historically, why does this matter? Last week, we started talking about this, didn't we? We said, oh, Dinhum. All right, Dinhum, a product that hasn't been on the market for very long, right? 100 years. And long by tea years, by the way. When we talk long by tea years, 500 years is starting to be a little long. 1,000 years is starting to be long. So Dinhum as a product more than 100 years ago didn't exist. And as such, you go to the Isle Mountains, which is not the birthplace of Dinhum. Where did we say it was? Fengcheng. So that's in Linsong, miles and miles and miles away from Isle Mountain. A different ethnic composition and a different training stage. What do I mean by training stage? The people from Ximen came all the way and selected Fengcheng because they liked the source material that was there, taught them how to do the basic process, which is a red tea process, right? Using old and ancient tea material. In addition, as part of the, in quotes, training, they also introduced how in this environment should we do monoclonal planting, because it was a very different environment. The weather terroir, the physical terroir was different. So they first started with what existed, the old and ancient trees, And then they moved to the monoclonal planting. And this all happened within Fengqing. So let's ask ourselves a question. You have a new methodology in an area where this methodology hadn't been done at all. Basically, in Yunnan, you're getting the fully fermented, you're getting the raw black, and that was about it. You were getting a little bit of green tea, but not very much. And then in comes this new process for doing red tea. And so that's what happened. And that's the conclusion I really am starting with today. Because realistically, when you think about last week, I talked about the introduction of Dianhong, Yunnan Red, and then really didn't talk about the spread of Yunnan Red and how did that work. It worked organically. Ooh, that sounds good. I like organic. You know, I go to Berkeley Bowl. I love organic. But when it's a process that works organically, do you have law and order associated with that process? And the answer is absolutely not. The learning modality has to spread slowly, and you need reinforcement, and eventually you need order. You never really got order in the spread of this process. And it's only within the last 20 to 30 years has there been a suggestion of order. We saw order in 2018 when people were visiting, not people, scientists were visiting from another area in Yunnan and trying to teach improvements in the Dianhong process. So my point being is we have Dianhong and we have this process, and slowly it's spread across Yunnan. And today you can say all parts of Yunnan have a basic understanding, but are they experts? To a degree, yes, and to a degree, no, right? Because there's still room for improvement. There's still room for doing better. Hey, let's go visit Fengqing and see how they do it. Hey, let's invite somebody up from Fengqing and see how they do it. Why is all of this occluded? It's occluded because I ask you this. What is the IP that a farmer has? Now, in some way, this is a trick question, isn't it? And for those of you who are thinking about it clearly, you're going to say, well, if it's monoclonal, I suppose it has to do with the varietal. Good answer. It's not the complete answer, though. What if it's old or ancient? Now we're dealing with a cultural terroir. And what part of that cultural terroir am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that tea trees were IP. I use past tense. Are IP. They were and they are IP. They're less IP in the sense that I originally meant it today than they were 30 years ago. 20 years or earlier ago, the location of the tea trees was hidden. In other words, you go to a village, ooh, this is really good. What is this? Oh, I got this tree back there that's producing. Can we go see? Oh, it's miles away. Your legs are too short. You know, it's very dangerous. There are snakes there. You know, trust me, it exists. You have a picture? Well, yeah, here's a picture. Okay. And that was supposed to substitute for really understanding the plants and the terroir. And so when you have that type of fear, and really it's driven by fear, right? Sometimes justified, sometimes unjustified. Fear that somebody's going to steal your special tree or steal access to your special tree or plant. All of a sudden, you become protective. And then as you're going through process, you kind of screen who's up and around. And when they want to go see stuff, oh, it's going to rain today. I can tell. It's going to rain hard. It's going to be way too hard to climb up there. That fog's coming in. When that fog comes in, your compasses don't work. You'd be lost. So within the last 20 to 40 years, all of that stuff has now become much more public. It's become labeled so that people know where it is. However, that's not an invitation for strangers to go to these places. It is, though, a recognition that once you label stuff like this, and once you start doing scientific research on it, which, by the way, accelerates. Why is it accelerating? Oh, I'm about to take a digression. You know what? Let's move that digression. I'm still going to go there. Let's move to the side for 1 second. Let's finish the identification first. The identification is you know where this stuff is. So from a scientific point of view, from an agricultural scientific point of view, they have maps. Okay, you got groves here, you got groves there. This is about the age this. Oh, we don't know the age this. We got to go investigate. You have all these things going on. Now, let's bring back that digression, because as scientists look at these various areas, they're not only thinking about the obvious things, age, what's the weather like, what's the soil like. They're starting to think about something that affects you and me, everyone who drinks the tea. Okay, this tastes good. Well, let's do some experimentation on what are the main compounds that seem to drive that taste. Okay, that's one good thing. And they're doing lots and lots of research on that. And next week, we'll talk about some of that specific taste research because it's really interesting. But that's not for this week. Instead, they also focus on, all right, what sorts of potential beneficial, and I'm talking about health beneficial types of compounds are coming from this area. So they start area-wise first. Why? Where are they looking? They're looking from the ground up. There's a so-called rhizospheric area. Zone is the better word. So it's in between the roots and the soil. And that's where plants may be communicating. That's where plants, the important bacteria in the soil exists. They're starting there because they're looking at that and they're saying, aha, as we look at this in this area of Ilau, when we go to a different elevation, the microbial components are different. Now, is this an elevation thing? Is it a varietal thing? As far as they can tell right now, it's an elevation thing. When you're at a certain elevation, some of this microbial congregation seems to segment that way. They're not able to say with 100% certainty. You still see these loose statements. Well, at 2,000 or 6,000 feet above sea level, between 6,000 feet and 6,300 feet, there seems to be this relationship between this particular microbial environment. And it's an environment because there's lots of microbes, but in that microbial environment, it's usually no more than 5 main ones. And so that doesn't mean that there are millions and millions of others underneath that, but they're onesies and twosies. You know, the 40% this, 20% that, 18% that, you know, and each of those that's represents a different microbe. Why is that important to you and me? Well, today, let me put it this way. Last year, we probably would have said, that's not really important to us because we just want to drink the tea. It tastes good. More and more research is starting to tie that environment to not only flavor profiles, and again, we'll talk about that portion next week, but more importantly, to health profiles. What sorts of compounds that seem polyphenols, catechins, theaflavins, theorubicins, all those, you know, long-worded things that somehow have an interplay with our health. What makes one environment seem to produce something that's richer in one of those compounds versus another compound? They're studying that now, and they're putting a lot more focus on that because they see, oh, there apparently is a difference by elevation and by microbial environment. I'll tell you, the research that they're rolling out now in terms of blood pressure, blood sugar, anti-tumor, all these things for which the modern world citizen is interested in. Yeah, give me the stuff that helps me. You know, I get angry all day, but if I can just get enough of this tea in me, my blood pressure will be 8% better than it would have been. These are the studies that you're beginning to see more and more of. And it's fascinating because they're coming onto the research scene, the published research scene, faster than I can keep up, way faster than I can keep up, because there's so much interest from all of you and from me on, hey, if I drink 8 cups of this, will I go to heaven? Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't the right question. Okay, if I drink 8 cups of this, will I live forever? Also not the right question. Will my blood pressure be under control? So these are why these micro environments are so important. And these are why the research into these microenvironments are so important. And Dinhun seems to be at the head of 2 trends. One is there's a gut-liver connection, the microbiota connection, that Dinhun seems to have a very positive effect on. More and more research about that. And then there's this other area, the alcoholic liver problem. If one has an alcoholic liver, Dinhun seems to have a really important effect in helping, do I dare use this word? I'm going to use it, and remembering I'm not a scientist and I'm using it loosely, restore the liver. I'm sure it doesn't restore the liver as much as restore some of the functions. That's what I should have said. Yes, restore some of the functions of the liver, of an alcoholic, a liver that's been affected by excess alcohol. So these things are fascinating. And this is why in the old days, when this stuff was hidden, except for the indigenous peoples or the local peoples who lived in the area, maybe a few scientists, it was inaccessible. Now that more research is being poured into this. And now that the locations of some of these trees, and remember, what word did I just modify? I said some of these trees. Does China know where every single one of these trees is? And the answer is no, they do not. Well, they know it's in China. Exact location, they're still discovering, because these forests are really, really hard to get to. And once you're into them, they're really, really dangerous, some of them. And therefore, trying to get that detail. Scientists are working really, really hard in China to get these details, to nail them down, to do further research and bring this to the public. Because at some point, there's going to be real health claims that one can make about these teas. Right now, you have health tendencies you can say about these teas, but we live in a scientific world, and the scientific world says, hey, you better give me facts, not guesses, causation, not correlation. We want to know exactly what's going on so that I can plan and make my life better. And so this is what's being worked on. This is what's coming out. And this is why, as we bring you these teas, it's so interesting. So the Dianhong, to specifically swing to today's teas, tends to have, because of the process and the location, tends to have certain flavor profile. We'll talk about that flavor profile after we've entered the quality arena and done your tests. And that flavor profile tends to be different than, for example, the Anhui Reds, the Chimuns. And they know specifically what compounds seem to be more in the Dianhongs versus those. All right, let's see how I'm doing. Oh, I'm doing great. 10 o'clock on the nose. Let's see if the tea master agrees with my doing great. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to bring forth the numinous tea master, Bijou, and she will brew for and with.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, 早上好. We do Yunnan 红茶. It's ready. Okay, so we prepare loose leaf. Huh? Yeah. This is my tea is section. Yeah, here. Usually I use 3 large cup. Okay.
So at home, you would have 2 large cups. We have an extra cup or 2 here as we make more than 1 cup of tea. 2, and a tea strainer. Tea tray is advisable to keep the water from sloshing over from all over the place. But you can use any other setup in terms of controlling water that you want. This is brewed at 175 degrees, but obviously we dissipate the steam, aerate the water, and if you end up brewing at 170, that's fine. Anywhere in that range. Making sure that the cups are really, really clean, no residues of any sort, and watch the tea master's rhythm. It's a great rhythm.
Must be fat.
Yep, 175-degree water. She's drawing the water. And I'm putting 3 minutes not 4 minutes, as I said in the second incorrect email. Oops, I'm sorry. Nice. People come in and inquire quite often. They say, the few times that you're allowed to brew, it tastes different than the tea master when she brews. Yeah. Ichiling, I think.
170.
Whoops.
No. I start 175.
Oh, okay.
This is general, in TT3, I use the 175. Never use 170.
175.
Yeah, 175.
Yeah, thank you.
So tea master, they do, the judgment, the heat. So they wash the judgment. So became, the 170 to 170. So yeah. Forever, 175.
Yeah,
Always.
175 for this one. Forever. All right. And here comes the tea leaves into the heated cup. Shaking, trying to distribute the heat onto the leaves. Pouring on the side, putting the water back in the kettle and pouring on the side.
3 minutes.
Yep, 3 minutes. So the important thing to see about this is take a look at how these leaves hang for the most part at the top. And when you end up brewing, you're going to see what appears to be chaos. It's not chaos. It's done this way on purpose. So remembering that, generally speaking, how do you make this tea again? You pick it. It's a bud and 2 leaves. You wither. You roll. You oxidize. And then you wither and apply a little bit more heat. Slight baking at the end. So what is it that the farmers have done differently? Because I just described the red tea process to you. What did these farmers do differently? And what makes this tea so out of the world different than red tea, say, in Fujian or red tea, say, in Chiman? Oh, there's something very, very different in this. Because you're going to look at these things and you're going to say, wow, multicolor. I'm not used to that. When I have red tea, I have 2 colors. I have black and red, black and gold. But this one, wow, we've got some green, a little bit of yellowish. We got different shades of brown. What happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. This one was oxidized less than a normal red tea is oxidized. Normally, a red tea, 90, 91, 92%. This, about 86, 87, 88%. So one thing you should be noting is it doesn't take much variation to produce a huge variation in the tea. The other thing you're going to notice about this is it has stems in it. I love this tea because they have put all the different parts in here. You know, you get the chimans, they're beautiful. Everything is uniform, especially what we get here. Everything's uniform. You get the rosy dawns, oh, all beautiful. The divine plums, it's beautiful. This, wow, absolute chaos. I wonder what the flavor is going to be. Timer went off, by the way. Tea Master pours. Okay. We notice one thing immediately about this type of chaos. Take a look at that color. It's a little bit darker than you would normally associate with red teas that you get in here. Why again? Because you have stems in there. The stems add a little touch of color, actually quite a lot of touch of color to this. All right, let's go ahead and enter the quality arena. And as we do so, I've observed that color. When the spent leaves were here, I smelled those leaves. Now I'm going to taste and look for astringency, wear on the tongue. I'm going to look at what sort of aftertaste, and I'm going to think about what sort of energetics. And the energetics can cover anything you want them to cover. Well, almost anything you want them to cover. Okay. Oh, and get your notes out because this is different than last week. It's different than the week before. I'm going to take a second sip. I've already ascertained astringency. The aftertaste I'm working with, I'm going to dig in as I do the second sip to aroma and flavor. Not in a hurry. Okay, it's your turn to brew. So yours is relaxation in bag number 3. There's 6 grams in there. Going to go through the normal procedure here and make sure your timer is 3 minutes. Okay. So when you see stems in here, again, is this a mistake? Is it an accident? What happened? This is local custom, is what it is. Very purposeful. And this is how innovation, sometimes accidental, sometimes cultural, occurs. Yes. Okay, so you heard what she just said. She starts out with 175-degree water and then continues to cool it down, aerate the water, dissipate the steam. So it ends up being somewhere between 170 and 175. You will not go wrong with any temperature in that range. You put the leaves in your heated cup. In a way, relaxation, this particular tea from Ilau, is what made us know that we had to go visit, because this was so distinct. Put your timer on 3 minutes, please. In terms of color, in terms of look and feel. Did I hit that? I did. Okay. That, gosh, we hadn't seen that before. And we thought, we need to have a deeper understanding of this. So one of you asked us a question this week, and this is the backstory to that question. Because one of you asked, wow, have you really been to all these farms? And the answer is yes, we have. Why? Because we like seeing the actual conditions. It makes a difference, the actual conditions. And you can ask the farmers questions. Hey, how come there are these stems in here? You have an accident or something? Sloppy? No, not sloppy at all. This is how we do it. And it's really important in the more remote places because indigenous peoples have a different relationship with the tea plant sometimes. And when they do, they have their reasons for doing things. And so that's why, as a tea professional, we try and get down to those basics because we see the obvious. Oh my gosh, this is like this. Well, why is it like this? Then we get that and are able to tell you the full story behind this. So the other aspect, and I started down this road a couple minutes ago and never finished. When the tea master and I brew, we followed the same instructions. And yet, many of you have pointed out, oh my gosh, when Biju brews, her tea is so much better than yours. Why is that? We have different rhythms, and our rhythms end up or have a end result that it's slightly different. It's not day and night different, it's slightly different, but you can definitely tell when you have the very superior Biju tea and the okay understudy tea. All right, your timer is very nearly off. When it goes off in 14 seconds, you will, in rhythm, separate the tea leaves from the tea water, and then you'll enter the quality arena. Mm-hmm. Okay, your turn to enter the quality arena. So remember, this is a rhythm thing. You're not in a hurry. And by the way, when we went, because after we got to know the tea farmer, there's a funny story about this tea farmer because we weren't the first foreigners to actually make this trek. There were foreigners from Russia who regularly make a trek and also get tea from this particular area. And they actually live in Siberia. They've got a tea shop there. And we have never run into each other, although in 2000, last year, we came within 1 day of each other. We were there, we're getting ready to leave, and the driver says, "Oh yeah, I got to turn around and come back this evening." And so, oh, okay, why so late? And he said, "Oh, there's this guy flying in Russia." I said, "Ah, we know who this guy is. We've seen his picture, but we've never met him." The other thing that's great in this area, there's two other products that are really great in this area. One is walnuts. They have walnuts that grow here that taste a little bit different from the walnuts here. Not a lot different, but a little bit. Very good taste to them. And the other fabulous product, the thing that everybody really wants, even more than the tea in China, is the honey from this place. Because the honey from this place, oh my God, it is really good. Oh, good point. Yeah, I forgot about that. They have some famous mushrooms and herbs up here as well. Yeah.
Jennifer comments, I'm really enjoying this tea liquor. It's got an easy sense to it, easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Easy to drink, easy tea liquor, easy to enjoy. Jennifer made that comment. Thank you. This is extremely approachable, not hard at all. Yes.
Jennifer adds, it's sweet and a bit grassy.
Sweet and grassy for Jennifer. And I like the comment, and I'm sure we're going to get some others that will add on to that. Great comment. Great starting point.
Jonathan observes, yes, easy to drink. The sweetness is also less intense, and the tea water is less viscous. I experience a cooling in my mouth like many red teas. Do we know what it is in the red tea that does that?
Oh, this is a great question. What compound? Well, let me first state what the comment was. Comment was an experience of cooling in the mouth, agreement with Jennifer, generally speaking, in terms of the sweetness. And Jonathan's question is, what causes that kind of that aftertaste, that cooling, the cooling sensation? And actually, you beat me to the punch because we were going to talk about this next week. I'll talk about it now. One of the compounds that they've identified is linalool, Linalool. And they're doing a lot of research on this particular compound for a lot of reasons. That's an alcohol, by the way, not the type you drink, by the way, either. Well, you are drinking it, but not that way. And it tends to have a lavender, it tends to have almost a mintiness to it. And there's some alleged health benefits, which we'll get into next week as well. Great question.
Rob noticed that the warm leaves had a malt umami scent, whereas the steeped leaves had floral notes. And then the tea water smelled like honey and cider.
Great comment. So the scent was malty, the warm leaves were sweet, and the tea water
clean, sweet. Actually, I'm adding something additional, but smelled like honey and cider.
Honey and cider. I love this comment, especially where we ended up. And this is the result of somebody being present, of Rob being present as he analyzes and drinks this. And he gets down to that honey and cider. Starts at the malty. Why am I highlighting this? Because researchers talk about the Denhums as typically getting towards that cider in the drink itself. Sweetness is there, but the cider is more apparent than even the sweetness. And the malty, also in terms of the warm leaves. The Chinese would identify exactly with that.
And Rob, so I make sure that I was true to your comment, Rob, that this was the tea water that smelled like honey and cider, but the taste was smooth, clean, sweet, and it coated my tongue.
Smooth, clean, sweet coating of the tongue of the tea water. And absolutely, this leaves it leaves a freshness and cleanness as an aftertaste, actually.
Jennifer finds definitely resonates with her that there's a hint of lavender.
Okay. Jennifer notes, yeah, there is a hint of lavender, and that really is the linalool, because that is already been distinctly identified as having that type of a flavor or hint or scent. So when you think about this, think about Harold. They're very different than Harold. And think about autumn colors. Even though autumn colors is in fact a Denhum, it does not have this flavor profile. And I would say the one distinct part that it does not have is that hint of cider. This has a hint of cider. Autumn colors does not.
There's almost a piercing quality to me, and the sweetness and where it lands almost like it's flying down my throat, but there's a piercing quality. I was wondering, is it that lavender thing? How is it somewhere in that clean commentary? That seems to be part of it, but something else. How would you describe it?
It's like you were living in my head, because I was just about to say this has a punchiness. You used the word piercing. We're on the same track here. Why? Linalool might be part of it, but it's not the complete answer. The other part of the answer, which I think is really, really important, is this is less oxidized. And that 2 to 3% difference, I think, directly reflects on a penetration, a piercing quality in this tea versus, again, something that's oxidized more heavily, something, yeah. And let's go back to Jennifer's first comment, because her first comment, she talked about sweet and grassy. Let's identify where that grassiness came from, because I forgot to do that even as I heard that comment. Think about the fact again that this is less oxidized. So therefore, a little bit of that original tea leaf flavor in there.
Interesting. Jennifer adds, I'm drinking this tea very quickly as compared with others. The lavender mint hints are intoxicating with the sweet and warm comfort. Very relaxing.
Lavender and mint hints intoxicating, and Jennifer's drinking this very fast. This is the type of tea that if you don't apply a governor, you'll get it all down in under 30 seconds. I know that if I'm not present, I get it down and it's like, doggone it, my glass is empty. How did that happen? Somebody drank my tea. All right. Loved going through this tea with you. And I think that it's very clear between the first two teas what a different tea this is. Same relative process, but little changes or little differentiations make a huge difference. Where are we going from red tea? Well, that's a good question. We're going to more red tea. We have a series, and the second series will cover. Where are we going next week? You know what? I forgot. I know bridged is part of it, and we're going to have also ovation as part of it. But neither of those two are next week. We'll have a surprise next week. It's a red tea, though. All right, your responsibilities this week: be healthy, have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye, guys.